All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. I think I see Oscar in the room because now we are in focus on you with Phil and Oscar. Of course, everybody's wondering what's our theme for today. I wonder what we're going to be talking about today. I'm not sure. Oscar, please help me out. What do you think it is? I have no idea.
We're here in our series with Ransom Davenport talking about dysfunctional males and being superheroes that are the most dysfunctional, and delving deep into what's really going on. Why are they a superhero? What caused them to do that? What are they trying to fix? So that is the theme for today. So we figure we put on a fantastic background. And everybody's wearing their black shirts today, and background we're like a bad band.
I think the whole thing with the background is this, right? The whole thing with the background is that we're going to be talking about Iron Man specifically. Is that right, Ransom?
Oh yeah, that's our man for the hour, or for this time, is the Iron Man. And so you want me to jump in? We're ready to go?
Go ahead, jump in, man.
All right, man. So this is what we're going to do. I'm just going to, like a good, I want to say, journey or I would say guide on this journey. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what we're going to cover today. So today we're going to talk about the time period that this comic book was made, what was going on during those times, the men who created it, the hero's relationship with their father, talk about dysfunction for most of them, the hero's backstory, what caused him to go from a zero to a hero status, the signposts and intersections the character had to walk through, and what were their issues? Sound good?
Well, superheroes don't have issues, okay? They're superheroes, okay? If they die, they come back because they missed it just by that much.
That's right. You so thought, and then we shouldn't have killed that hero. Everybody liked him. It looked miraculous, right?
It's a J.R. Ewing back after 2 seasons. We got to bring him back.
That's right. So dive in about the time. So during this time is 1963 when Iron Man was birthed. So this was during the Cold War era, Vietnam era, and communism was blowing up. Let's see, originally he appeared in Tales of Suspense, March of 1963, till eventually he got his own. He was 22 years after Captain America. Now these two guys are going to tie in, their story going to tie in very strongly. So this is what was going on in the United States. This is just a brief overview for people like myself. I was born in 80. It's like, I don't really remember the 60s. So here it is. The United States was dominated by the actions of civil rights activists and those who opposed them. Our role in Vietnam was steadily growing. It was the year Beatlemania began and the year President John F. Kennedy visited West Berlin and delivered his famous Ich bin in Berlin speech. Push-button telephones were introduced. First-class postage stamps were 5 cents. I haven't seen that for a while. And the population of the world was 3.2 billion people. Less than half of what it is today, guys. The space race was brewing. The Verrazano Narrow Bridge, so in your neck of the woods, linking Brooklyn to Staten Island, was under construction. The final months of 1963 were punctuated by one of the most tragic events in American history, the assassination of President Kennedy in Dallas, Texas. So that was a little bit was going on. The country is in a much different place, and men were definitely in a much different role than they had ever been before. They could no longer just be the provider of the family. They had to be activists on just guys, so many fronts. I got my notes here so I don't wander off. Give me just 1 minute. Also, they had to learn how to lead a new generation of navigators. The world as they had formerly known it was quickly, I said quickly, evolving. The world wanted and needed a new breed of man who would overcome this kind of, the Iron Curtain was forming at this time, this Iron Curtain that seemed to be forming around the world. Hence the new Iron Man. No, we're not talking about that rock song. What was this?
Iron Man, yeah.
am Iron Man. Who was that?
That was
Was it Black Sabbath?
What's his name?
Was that Black Sabbath? Ozzy Osbourne?
Ozzy Osbourne. There you go.
Ozzy Osbourne. I'm not that kind of Iron Man for sure. So, do you guys have anything that you want to weigh in about that? What do you remember from that time? Because I wasn't born. Like, what stands out to you?
I was born.
I was 4 years old.
Okay, so I'm in good company. I helped revive everybody's mind.
So okay. I have no clue as to what was going on, but what I do know is that Iron Man was one of the early Avengers that were drawn up. And also, we, like you said, along with Captain America, and for all the comic book craze out there, I mean, the Hulk was coming up around that time. And all of this was really kind of geared around, Hydra, and all of that was a reflection of the Nazi Germany, and America, had to come up with these heroes to inspire the troops and inspire everyone around this war. So, in a way it was a form of propaganda, but it worked.
We won the war.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Grace of God, we won the war.
I think it was after that I believe DC followed suit with Wonder Woman, and a couple other characters I think came out of that for DC Universe. So yeah, this was big time.
We already had a Man of Steel, so now it's like, well, we can't use steel. What's next? Iron.
That's
Iron Man.
That's right. And we're going to get
Titanium Man or something, but
yeah, Titanium. It doesn't have the same ring, does it? No, it doesn't sound very masculine. Titanium, iron. You just in your mouth. Titanium, iron. You can sing it, right? So now we'll delve into the men who created it. So the two men in my research given credit for this character were Stan Lee, who developed the story, and then we have Jack Kirby, who was the character designer. Yes, so we've heard that name before.
I actually met Stan Lee at a comic convention.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was like
nice.
Stan Lee. Yeah, meeting Stan Lee is like, for a comic book head, meeting Stan Lee is like, out of body experience.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh my God.
You see him, people who love comic books see him turn into that giddy kind of like man, putting around something like that. Oh my gosh. But the thing about Jack Kirby too, he also developed our last character that we talked about, Captain America. So he had a place in it. So I think you'll see some bridging over that water between the two of them, and I think he might have had a hand in that. So let's dive into Howard Stark. So the father of Tony Stark is one of the places I want to go. So he was this just overworking father, but he learned it from his father, Howard Stark Sr. Now his story ties in with where you guys are in the world. So he was born in Richford, New York, an avid, brilliant inventor from a young age. He was a brilliant scientist throughout his life. He and his father worked on various projects and later founded, as we all know it, last name, Stark Industries. Throughout his childhood, Stark worked on various government projects dating back to World War I and World War II era. So this is where we start seeing some Captain America pop in, which came to completion during World War II. The World War II Manhattan Project and the Arsenal robots. This is from his story. Arsenal robots, which were hidden in a sub-basement in his mansion. During the 1950s, Stark was an agent. So they're still talking about the father. So Tony's father.
Howard.
Let's see. 1950, Stark was an agent of the secret science organization known as, it wasn't SHIELD at the time, it was the SHIELD.
Oh.
So later on, they dial it down like, maybe not the SHIELD. How about just SHIELD? And he partnered with a guy by the name of Nathaniel Richard. So this was his partner on that. Stark married Marie Collins Carbonell.
Any connection to Reed Richards?
What's that?
Any connection to Reed Richards?
I don't know.
Reed Richards is Fantastic Four, super genius, scientist as well. Equivalent to almost equivalent. Well, I know that I may get some kickback on this, but Reed Richards is equivalent to Tony Stark as far as scientific genius.
This is very true. Yeah.
Yes.
But I would say this, that his scientific drive, and we could dive into that one later, talking about him, took him to the point where he caused himself to grow into this elastic man. Like, what wasn't good enough? Like, I know there was a freak accident, but you pushed the limits just a little too far, and you took everybody along with you. It's just a thought,
I think both of these guys had one thing in common, and is that their creativity pushed them because they wanted to be what was the word? Seen. Right? They wanted to be
supported.
Heard. Supported. Right. They wanted to be seen. They wanted to be acknowledged for their work. Right, recognized for it, cheered for it. And so that was a driving force. That's a common driving force between those two characters. Is their main thing was to be acknowledged, and whenever you challenge that, it would drive them even further into their creativity.
Yeah, you see that definitely with the Iron Man character. He has the nemesis throughout the different movies, comic book, like these things happen instead of being like, hey, stop, let's go in, let's see what went wrong. How do I change it? How do I modify my suit? How do I do these things to become stronger and better? And we're going to get to a little bit more too with his story about the need for modification. We're going to dive into that as well. This part of his issues. I see Oscar down there smiling. So with this, Howard married Maria, and they had a son, Tony Stark. Like, he pushed him. Like, from his story, he just constantly pushed him, telling him, and this is quite amazing, that the world needed someone who has iron in their backbone. You're going to run this company. You literally have to have iron in your backbone to be successful.
Wow.
So what do you think that did for him and his psyche and his soul to have that be spoken over to him all the time?
So, okay, which guy isn't being told that? Because, like, think about it. If you're going to be like a Tony Stark, if you're going to be a successful guy, you can't have any emotions. Can't let people move you. You can't feel, because feelings are weakness, right? I mean, all that stuff is what boys are taught about being a man, right? You can't show vulnerability. Being vulnerable is weakness. Showing weakness is weakness. So even if you are falling apart, you got to put the Iron Man suit on. You've got to become that hero to everybody when you're losing the fight to yourself.
Yeah, but what does that do to the person? Now, we have real life examples of this with Michael Jackson and Tiger Woods, whose fathers both pushed them like from birth, like you are going to be successful. And how does that, Michael Jackson was not allowed to be a child. He was always a performer. So he's like Peter Pan. He never grew up to be a man. He's always a child. And Tiger Woods, as famous as he is, has to have some sort of outlet to, like, I don't want to be, on the spotlight, and then he gets in trouble with the girlfriend thing. So there's all that pushing to, to be Iron Man, to be Tiger Woods, to be Michael Jackson do a person.
Can I answer? I just want to jump in on that just before you get in on this. I believe that based on this book I read, I don't remember the title or anything, but it was basically talk about how men have rooms. It was talking about the difference between men and women, and I thought this analogy was great because it said when men live their life, they build different rooms in a house. Like they have a house and it's different rooms, and one room is for relationships, the other room is for work, the other room is for friends, the other room. They create a room for everybody and everything, right? And they, that room is like, boom, okay. Once they leave that room, that's, they lock it. If it's a really bad room, they lock it and bolt it and, put all sorts of reinforcements on it. And the sign that says, warning, never enter this room ever again. Okay, right? And they leave that room. And it's like it never even existed. It's like, boom, they move on. And so, and women have more of an open space. They see everything, they deal with everything all in one space. Everything affects everything. So, their job affects their family affects their finances affects everything. So everything is in this one room, and they manage the world with dealing with everything in one room. That's why your wife can pull up what you did 10 years ago, because she's in the same room as what happened 10 years ago. Okay. So she can pull those resources in a split second, when we're still trying to figure out what what are you talking about, right? So with the Iron Man scenario and with this, I believe guys build hotels. There's some guys that have full-on resorts with like rooms that have do not enter all along the hallway, are occupied. And it's like, if we don't do that work of, saying, okay, let me go behind this room, because each of these rooms overall affect our whole life. Right. We might think, okay, that monster is locked up in that room. He's never coming out. But the trouble is, he's already out. Right. You thought you locked it up good, but he's affecting every other area of your life.
Yeah, you locked the door and left the window open.
And or even if you locked everything up, there's still this stench coming from that room, like something is rotten in there. Something is really dying in there.
Well, that's a really good segue, actually, right there, when we're talking about his father, because his father's pushing to do this, be successful, have a, iron in your backbone. But here the thing is, behind that heroic facade of his father, he was a functional alcoholic. A strained relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Look at that.
You be this, but I'm going to be that, because I don't have it. So he's trying to push his son. He didn't know how to first model that. He didn't know how to become it. He's a very tragic character. And he was so capable of like devotion and commitment, and he had all this respect and everything towards machines, to his creations, to all this. But I mean, his son, wasn't that his greatest creation? Shouldn't have been all his energy and all that going into that next generation, that next man. He appeared to have little interest towards his son.
But the AI was his safe place.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, in fact, think about it. The artificial intelligence that he created became one of his friends. he created the perfect friend for himself. So he didn't really have to connect with a lot of people in the real world. He could, sleep around, and it doesn't really affect him. Pepper Potts really just she infiltrated the fortress, and it just so happens that he connected with a human being on a different level. But overall, Tony Stark could live without humans. He could build all of his friends that think like him. If you notice in one of the movies that came out with where when one robot went bad, I forgot his name.
Oh,
uh,
yeah. Oh,
uh
you're talking about with, yeah, I'm blanking on it too. That was from the first Avengers movie. No one is.
Second, yeah, the second, I
Yeah,
think it was
second
the
one,
second or
Age
third
of
one.
Ultron.
Oh, yeah, Age of Ultron, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
Ultron was a reflection of him.
Hmm.
And it turns out that his artificial intelligence that was running his company was actually him duplicating himself as an AI. And so that was my point that I was aiming to from the rooms, is that, a lot of times we build artificial things to make us feel like real people, but it's not real.
Hmm.
It's stuff that we've created for ourselves to assimilate somewhat of a real world. And there's nothing better than the real thing.
I agree wholeheartedly. So let's dive in and take a look at Mr. Stark. We've been talking a lot about him behind his back, and I feel bad.
Yeah,
Let's
no,
get
I
into
know.
the talk.
I'm sorry, Tony. I'm sorry.
Sorry, man. You're gonna fly it
I
into.
love you, though. I love you, man.
That's
Tony's
right.
one of my
Oh,
heroes.
well, he's dead now, technically,
Uh,
right? In the movies, I
like
don't.
I said about heroes, man, they never really die.
They never
Another
really die.
dimension somewhere.
They're in
About
your heart. They're never dead. So let's look at this then. Tony Stark's real life model for this character, just bringing some history, was actually Howard Hughes. And Howard Hughes was a movie producer turned defense contractor who developed weapons technologies in conjunction with aircrafts during the middle of the late 20th century.
Mhm.
Iron Man explored the industry's role in shaping society through technology, along with the struggle of men at that time, in my opinion, to find the new man within a society that seemed to need a very, different kind of man. It wasn't the kind of man anyone knew how to become because it was melded around that technology piece, over ever evolving. Now, to be the cool dad, you're like, you don't know about this, you don't know about that thing. Have you guys ever experienced that with your children? This, like, you're so not in the know with this. It's this constant evolving and changing.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Uh, well, remember you talked about the subconscious, but I want to give Oscar space on this one because I think he probably has something to say on that as well. But what I got to say is this: whatever is buried in our subconscious mind is just burying it doesn't make it non-existing. So it's still alive. It might be zombified. It might be something that is like The Walking Dead. Your father might have slapped you around the room a couple of times when he was drunk or angry or whatever, and you swore that you swore, I would never do that to my family, never do that to my kids. But just the right amount of pressure that life gives you, it just presses you a little bit. Next thing you know, you are raising up that zombie right out of that closet. And next thing you know, you just had one glass or one cup or one bottle or one, can of beer, and you are duplicating your parent. You
Well,
know,
the saying is, hurt people hurt people.
Mm.
it's true.
So until you deal with that hurt, you're going to just repeat that same script, basically.
Mhm.
That's,
My thing is, don't bury the guy, fight the guy, beat him, because the burying him only keeps him alive. You beating him and confronting him and saying, you are not going to have that power or influence in my life. You fighting him and wrestling with him, will give you that ability to overcome those things, because now you've wrestled with it. You've come to the truth. You've come to the reality of that situation.
Yeah, and how many times do you pull back the curtain and that thing that you're wrestling isn't that big? It's like, why was I putting up with this pain all this time where I could just get rid of it? So again, it's that I was thinking of something like, when you're going through hell, speed up. Don't stay there. Just fight it. Go. Like, yeah, I'm going through hell. Let's get it in the rearview mirror fast.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, that's a good plan. But I've found too that if you, like you're talking about, if you end up duplicating, if you don't actually visit, why am I into hell? Are you taking turns? Are you coming back? I need to go through hell. Isn't this the process for me? I go for a good while and then I have to go back through hell. Isn't that the route? Like, no, there's a road that keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to follow it? Are you going to keep on hanging out in that?
At the rest stop.
Yeah.
Get off the rest stop.
You say to yourself, I think I left something in that hotel back in hell there. Let me go back. And I might have to book the room for another night.
When your tooth hurts, you go, that hurts. Oh yeah.
Well, that might be a guy thing. Yeah. Like, oh, that hurts. Yeah. Oh yeah, it does. It's one of them things. For sure. But here, let's give you a little more insight to him. So when Stanley, which everybody geeked out at that name, when he went to create him, he said, I think I gave myself a dare. It was at the height of the Cold War. The young readers, if there was one thing they hated, it was war. It was the military. So I got a hero represented that to the 100th degree. So he was trying to protect people off. He was a weapons manufacturer. He was providing weapons for the army. He was rich. He was an industrialist. But I thought it'd be fun to take that kind of character that nobody would like, none of our readers would like, and shove him down their throats and make them like him. And he became very popular.
Wow.
So this is his mindset. He wanted to change the culture and really push in and really push the envelope and do those things. And Jack, who helped him out, says Stan set out to make his new character wealthy, a glamorous ladies' man, but one with a secret that would plague and torment him as well, going for what we're talking about. Writer Jerry Conway said, here you have this character, one on the outside who is invulnerable. I mean, he just can't be touched. But inside is a wounded figure. Stan made it very much an in-your-face wound. The heart was broken, right?
The heart is missing.
Literally broken. Yeah. But he
literally broken.
He said, but there's a metaphor going on there. And that's, I think, what made the character interesting. So here again, people associating with that because men at that time feeling this brokenness, feeling this absence, feeling those things. So they're, like I talked about before, these characters duplicating what's going on in man culture at that time. And those thoughts around what it is, seeing people that are wealthy, people like, the different people who profited off of war, humor and suffering, the Vietnam War, civil rights action around like, hey, we've been oppressed long enough. This is, someone's profiting off of this. Someone is doing this. This is not right. But then, what it takes then, it really takes a lot of courage to step outside of that and change it. But they brought it to the forefront with that. We're going to do this, but we're going to actually make you like him. And perhaps this maybe was an opportunity to let every story be heard, every person to be heard, seen as supported. Even the guy you don't like, you're going to start rooting for him. What are your thoughts? Oh, I can see he's contemplating. His wheels are going.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm not sure if if he was even conscious of that aspect of himself, right?
Now, is anybody conscious of this is why people have, therapists, because if you knew
Mm.
what was screwed up in your head, you'd be able to fix it. So we get to be the psychiatrists watching the the show and saying, hey, you're screwed up and you don't know it.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, that's a very good point. That's a very good point, Oscar. But I mean, here's the thing, right? If you've built such an illusion around yourself, if you've built, think about this, if you've built your own world, right? Do you think you need help? Because you've made a world where your rules are king. You made your own rules. It's like, okay, it's like an Elon Musk. Do I really have to deal with normal people? No. Everybody around me is hired by me. You know, if they offend me, I fire them and I create another world where nobody offends me, right? Because everybody's going to agree with what I say. You know, what I'd say and I'm a genius. I'm 12 levels mentally above everybody else. So why do I need your opinion? You're not even a thinker. Okay, boom, you're fired. And that was Tony Stark. Tony Stark was able to fire people that didn't line up with what he thought, break away from people. In fact, he had enough to really just create whatever world he wanted. And so in doing that, and this is what I loved about the whole Avengers thing, and him becoming a part of the Avengers, it was finally where he met people that were either physically beyond him or mentally beyond him, and or challenged him, like Bruce Banner, so he met people that were on his level, and it was like, wow, I'm not the only person in this world that has all the different capabilities. There are other people that even have natural superpowers. They don't have to create the machine. They basically are, self-sustaining. So he was challenged. His world became challenged as he started letting different people in. And I found that as the story went on, it normalized him. Now it's like by the time the third series came around, he had a family. He was more connected. He had his daughter. He became more of a man than an Iron Man. When he crushed that piece, and when he crushed the chess piece that was no longer, when they were fixed it, it was no longer protecting his heart. He actually was functioning as a human being. I believe that crushing that was saying, I am not Iron Man anymore. I'm just a man. That was huge. That was a huge journey from when he first started,
Oh, yeah.
you know. And I think that's really great. That's really a great point that movie made for him to take that journey through and through and be broken down. Each time they made a movie of him, a piece of him died and
Got
another piece
fixed.
resurrected.
Mhm.
Like,
Died or got fixed.
That or got fixed. That's it.
yeah, it got fixed. Yeah, well, yeah, I believe dying, that a part of you dying is not necessarily a bad thing. A part of you laying down a negative part of your life, you know, gives you a chance to rise again as a new person. So you get to basically bury certain things, like the AI. He created all these different robots, and he had to choose between Pepper Potts and all these different robots. He chose Pepper Potts.
And that's very interesting you bring that up, because like here's the whole thing. Like people don't realize too, like his kidnapping really put him in the most vulnerable spot. he was untouchable. He had all this, money, fame, all this. I'm this great, amazing guy, but he got kidnapped. So I
Yeah.
think he felt for the first time what it is to be a common man.
Person.
He's
Yeah.
like, man, well, I am touchable. I'm not beyond being touched. I
Mhm.
better create something to protect myself. But in my opinion, too, then it propelled him. Like, I don't want anyone to ever feel the way that I felt. I'm going to go out and create this, and I'm going to protect the world.
Yeah.
But I can't
Yeah.
trust anybody else. His mindset is, I can't trust anybody else. Like, right? I don't
Yeah.
people they're talking about my back. They're doing all this. I'm powerful. This, but at the end of the day, like Elon Musk, like how many people that are really committed to him?
Mhm.
I don't know for sure. How many people are really devoted to him, or is what he can do for them? It isn't for his genius, or is it actually him? Is it his human doing, or his human being as a man that they're in love with,
That's
infatuated with?
right. Right. Right.
He was pushing, bro. He's like, man, I'm done with being the head of this. I'm gonna go push a broom. People were like, "See you later, man.
I'm crushing the machine that I made, basically. He's like, I'm done.
I'm done." And then what does he become in other people's eyes?
Right.
But that's that whole identity piece. It's like no matter what I do, that's part of me as a man. Like when you're physically unable to take care of yourself to do those things, do you become less of a man? Are you still a value around that? Are you still able to do something valuable just because you can't do something valuable? Is your presence as a man still powerfully representing not just our gender, but our place in our family and our society?
Wow.
Is that enough, or do we have to constantly do?
So, as we're closing out, Ransom, tell the folks what you do, why we're discussing this, even
Sure.
because there's a specific reason we're talking about this, and it's not just because we're comic book fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead and just tell the folks what you do, and then we'll close out.
Yeah, man, I'd love to. So, I get the great joy of taking men through the journey that I personally went through. As I'm starting this out, I'm doing this coaching where I help men discover what it is to be a man. Then I help them to find out where their identity has been lost in that journey, because we all get lost. I help them to be able to recover that journey. And I take them through finding their identity through truth and by healing. So we go back through their stuff, we deal with it, and we move on from it. We recognize it's not what theirs and what is theirs to own, to take responsibility and to become that better man. I help every man to do that, and I would love to help men to become entrepreneurs as well. So people are wanting out to launch out doing the business, because I personally did that. So what does that look like to walk in a different thing? Maybe your identity is that, to do those type of things. And then the high level performer. So those people who live in a different world, professional athletes, politicians, all those people. What does it mean really, the truth of your identity into it? So that's in the nutshell what I do. And yeah, we'll leave them with that. So much more I could say. You got me at the very end. I'm like, and I got to push pause. So
How did they reach you?
we can reach out. Well, Phil will know how to reach out and do that. I'll give him some contact information. So does that work?
Yep, that works. That works.
That'll work. Okay,
We'll
you're
put
the
that in
man.
the video.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thanks everybody for watching. This is Focus on You with Phil and Oscar, and of course our dear friend Ransom Davenport. Take care, and we will see you again next week. Au revoir.